Buckle up. We start with a Fox News alert tonight. The president is now taking major action to secure our southern border. Just moments ago, announcing a brand new tariff on Mexico, pressing this country now to stem the flow of migrants that are overwhelming our entire immigration system. We'll have a lot more later in the program. First, though, tonight, the deep state is in a complete panic mode. The walls are closing in. We are now only days away, as we've been told by the Attorney General, from the release of major documents exposing the corruption at the highest levels of our government. Now, remember, the Attorney General said that he expects the Inspector General, Horowitz, to report on FISA abuse any day. And then, of course, we have the other four devastating buckets that we keep talking about, exposing what is the real election scandal to one Robin election and, secondly, undermine a duly elected president. But first, as we told you last night, the Russia hoax, it's dead. It is buried. It's non-existent. And by the way, just hours after his 9.5-minute statement fueling Democrats' hopes once again of impeachment and more hysteria and breathless reporting, well, Robert Mueller has now already backtracked, because last night the Department of Justice and the special counsel, they actually had to release a joint statement to correct what Mueller said. In other words, Mueller needed to walk back everything he said yesterday in a dramatic fashion because he totally contradicted everything that he'd been saying. Now, clarification, well, it wasn't exactly that, but it said this. But for the OLC, Office of Legal Counsel, opinion, that Mueller would have found the president obstructed justice. Well, the statement entirely consistent with the Attorney General's previous remarks in spite of the media mob's coverage. Remember, Barr said that Robert Mueller told him over and over again, and numerous other people heard it, and explaining just weeks ago, Mueller stated 3 times to us in that meeting that he emphatically was not saying that but for the Office of Legal Counsel opinion, he would have found obstruction. In other words, the Justice Department policy of whether you can or cannot indict a sitting president was never an issue, period. What does this mean? As the Attorney General Barr said today, Mueller could have reached a conclusion as to whether there was any criminal activity, but he chose not to. Take a look.
I personally felt he could have reached a decision.
In your view, he could have reached a conclusion.
Right, he could have reached a conclusion. The opinion says you cannot indict a president while he's in office, but he could have reached a decision as to whether it was criminal activity, but he had his reasons for not doing it, which he explained, and I'm not going to, argue about those reasons, but when he didn't make a decision, the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, and I felt it was necessary for us as the heads of the department to reach that decision.
So the Attorney General, and by the way, that's because Democrats like Jerry Nadler wanted to get rid of the old independent counsel statute. That means the Attorney General is the final arbiter. He's made up his mind, along with the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, and the nonpartisan Office of Legal Counsel. They were all crystal clear. For the media mob, let me spell it out for you. 0 findings that the president obstructed justice. None. And by the way, it had nothing to do with some Justice Department policy. Not because of a legal constitutional restriction, because there was no evidence. Now, make no mistake, this is no cover-up, no case against the president, no collusion, no underlying crime, no intent, no obstruction. In other words, the opposite of Hillary. But, of course, the radical extreme socialist Democrats, the rage Trump media mob, well, they refuse to focus in on the truth on this major issue. Ask yourself this. Why didn't the media mob report with the same intensity the release of the clarifying remarks of Robert Mueller after he botched it yesterday morning? Why didn't they put the same passion in as they did the 9.5 minutes of Robert Mueller? Here's another question. Why are they so lazy, so predictable, so partisan? Why are they fake news? Why do they feign moral outrage and then purposely fail to tell their viewers, as little as they are, the truth? How did they become so partisan? How did they become so political, so corrupt that they just refuse to answer simple questions and inform their viewers? The clarification of Mueller was massive. The correction was massive. So why did they choose to continue to peddle another round of lies and conspiracy theories and advance their hoax yet again? Why do they choose to act as partisan hacks instead of serious journalists? By the way, 99.9% of newsrooms in America, they all got it wrong. It was the talk show hosts, people like us. Yeah, we do straight news, we do investigative reports, we do opinion, but we're honest about it, and even sports and culture. They say they're objective. They're anything but. But why are they choosing to put fake news narratives over the facts after 2+ years of lying and choosing to relentlessly smear, slander, besmirch anybody who dares to question their lack of ethics and objectivity? Look at this tonight. The New York Times, they are now scared, taking notice, and they're realizing, they've been duped by the conspiracy TV media mob. Look at this new report. The New York Times is warning editors and reporters against appearing on primetime shows on fake news CNN and conspiracy TV MSNBC. Now, why would the New York Times, not go on their favorite programs, who refused, by the way, to ask tough questions to begin with? Like, did Robert Mueller forget his previous statements and yesterday's remarks? Or did he intentionally muddy the waters to fuel the Democrats' unrelenting impeachment rage psychosis? Well, now the president is standing strong, not letting himself be a punching bag, taking direct aim at the former special counsel, as he should, and his partisan witch hunt. Let's take a look.
Robert Mueller should have never been chosen because he wanted the FBI job and he didn't get it, and the next day he was picked as special counsel. So you tell somebody, I'm sorry, you can't have the job. And then after you say that, he's going to make a ruling on you. It doesn't work that way. I think Mueller is a true never-Trumper. He's somebody that dislikes Donald Trump. And despite $40 million, 18 Trump haters, including people that work for Hillary Clinton and some of the worst human beings on earth, they got nothing. It's pretty amazing.
Now, the president, he didn't stop there, calling out the special counsel more for a conflict of interest, writing, quote, Robert Mueller came to the Oval Office seeking to be named the director of the FBI. He had already been in that position for 12 years. I told him no. The next day, he was named special counsel, a total conflict of interest. The president's right. But here's the big takeaway from all of this. Robert Mueller, I am telling you, is scared to death to testify. Why? Because he'd have to answer real tough questions from people like Congressman Jim Jordan, Congressman Mark Meadows, Congressman Devin Nunes, and others. And by the way, Devin Nunes will be here in just moments. He would be afraid to answer questions like, Mr. Mueller, when did you know that there was no collusion? And by the way, if you had all this time to investigate FARA violations and taxi medallions and loan applications and decades-old tax returns, how did you not have any time to investigate the origins of Hillary Clinton's dirty Russian dossier that was used to commit a premeditated fraud on the FISA court, undermine a duly elected president after an attempt to steal an election? Oh, and of course, disseminate the Russian lies to the American people, and then spy on the Trump campaign, which, as the New York Times reported, that dossier was likely Russian disinformation from the very beginning. And by the way, Mr. Mueller, why did you hire a team of partisan Democrats, not a single Republican donor? You couldn't find one? No one? Why would you ever hire a guy, your pit bull, by the name of Andrew Weissman, a guy who has a horrific history of abuse of power? Remember Sidney Powell's book, License to Lie, withholding exculpatory evidence. Weissman was at Hillary Clinton's election night party that never happened. Why would you hire the Clinton Foundation attorney Jeannie Ray in a case like this? Remember, Mueller had a wide mandate. How did he, in good faith, ignore the single biggest abuse of power corruption scandal in modern political history, which, by the way, had to do with Russian lies and their attempt to steal an election in 2016? Well, now Judicial Watch's Tom Fitton, he is fighting back in a huge way. Tonight, he is calling for action on Mueller's attack on the rule of law, for turning it on its head. and abandoning long-held prosecutorial norms. And by the way, don't forget about his cozy relationship with that super patriot, James Comey. Didn't like smelly Walmart shoppers that like Trump like us. And of course, the hate Trump Democrats, they don't seem to care. They're still relying on the same lies, the same smearing, the same besmirchment. It happens every single second of every single minute of every single hour of every single day. Why? Because they're on a mission. They want to take this president down at all costs. It doesn't matter how great a job he's doing. It wouldn't matter if he cured cancer. To make every single waking moment a public trial against the president. The president has not only been successful, but under the worst conditions that any president has ever had to start their presidency under, regardless of facts, truth, reality. People that have no agenda to make us more safe, more prosperous, more secure. Has any Democrat talked about that recently? They have no plans for America's future, for our kids, our grandkids. They have no plan to grow the economy, create jobs, make us energy independent. No plan to solve the crisis at our border. No plan to make us stronger abroad. And then you got this pathetically weak field of 2020 radicals. They spend their time incoherently rambling about how much they hate the president and the new Green Deal that will eliminate, let's see, the combustion engine, oil and gas, cows, and airplanes. Gee, can't wait. And everything else will be free. Now, their collusion hoax is dead. It is finished. In spite of all the noise you hear, it's done. 4 separate investigations, 4. And all of them found the FBI 9-month investigation, House Intel investigation, bipartisan Senate investigation, and the Mueller report. 4 of them. No conspiracy collusion. And we now know from Mr. Mueller's retraction, absolutely no consideration of the Department of Justice policy as it relates to whether you can or cannot indict a sitting president.